Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to install and run a Postgres database locally on your own computer. This tutorial is going to be on Mac OS. So we're going to be doing this with Docker. If you do not have Docker installed on your computer yet, go to docker.com, get started, and download it for whatever system you have. Once you have that installed and running, and you'll see something that looks like this in the top of your screen once that's finished, you can go to your command line. And from your command line, you're going to run a Docker container. So you can do Docker container run, and this is going to be kind of a long command. If you're not familiar with Docker, that's okay. We're going to go through everything step by step. But just know that Docker is a really easy way to run software without installing a bunch of dependencies ahead of time. And we'll be using it in the next video to install Postgres on a server running on AWS in the cloud. Okay, so Docker container run is the command to start a container. We're going to give the container a name, so it doesn't just give us some randomly generated name. We're going to call it --name PostgresDB. Then we're going to open up the port of 5432. And if you don't know, port 5432 is the default port that Postgres exposes itself on to the internet. And that's a really well-known fact if you've worked with Postgres before, but it's fine if you don't know it. Okay, next we're going to give ourselves a volume. We're going to call that PG data. Normally, when you start a Docker container, it doesn't save any data. So if we uploaded some rows into the database and then stopped the Docker container and started it again, those rows would not exist anymore unless we give it a volume. That's what -v stands for. And we'll name the volume PG data. One thing that trips a lot of people up starting a Postgres database on Docker is that you need to pass an environment variable, and that's what the -e flag does, called Postgres_password. And you can give whatever password you want. I'm going to give my pass 12345. And then you need to specify the Docker image that you want to use. Now, the default Docker repository is Docker Hub. So if you go to Docker Hub Postgres, this is what it's actually going to download when we run this command. So I'll wait for that to come up. And you can see all the tags, and you give a tag by doing a colon and then the tag itself. So we're going to pick the latest one, 13.1. So Postgres 13.1, and I imagine that's probably the current version of Postgres that's out right now. And that's it. We're going to run this command. And because I've already done this before, it didn't show the image downloading. But if you've never run that particular Docker image before, it's actually going to download it for you. And let's start another tab so that we can connect to that database, which is now running. And you can see these are the logs of the database. So we'll start another terminal tab with Command-T, and then we'll connect to it. Now, the Docker image is exposing port 5432, so if we had the Postgres command line utility pSQL, we could connect to that, but we're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is we're going to go inside the Docker container that's currently running, and we're just going to use the pSQL command line utility that's installed inside there. So this is all kind of Docker specific stuff, and if you don't know about it, then that's fine. You don't have to. It's just how we're doing it. So docker exec-it is the command we use to get inside a Docker container that's currently running. Then we're going to give our name of our container. So we're inside the Docker container right now, and then we're going to run a command, psql-u postgres, which will log us into the database. Okay, so now we have a database running locally, which is a big sticking point that a lot of beginners can't really get by. You know, they'll go on the internet and find a service that allows you to run SQL commands without setting up a database, and that's fine. That's a great way to run SQL, and I encourage you to do that. But it's important to know how to set up a database yourself as well, and this is one way to do that. So now we're actually going to go to a site, sqlref.com. It's my site. And we're going to just copy and paste some stuff to create a database, create a table, insert some data, and just show that we have a working database. So we'll go down here and let's create a database. So create database, and we're not going to call it real estate. We'll create database mydb. Okay, that worked. And then let's add a table. So create table, my table, and we'll give that an ID column, which is an integer, and then name, which is varchar 100, which is just another word for text, and create that table. Let's insert a few rows. So we'll insert into my table values 1, Cal is my name, and we'll do 2, Stephanie. Okay, we inserted some data, so select star from my table, and you can see it's there. All right, so now we have a fully functioning database running locally, and we can exit this database. The best part about how we did this is that we can actually restart Docker, and because we gave it a volume, that database is going to be able to remember the data that we inserted. So let's just wait for that to restart. Okay, you can see that if you look at the terminal that was running the Docker container, it says the database system is shut down, server stopped, that kind of stuff, and that's because we restarted Docker. So if we run that same thing again, we'll probably actually get an error. Yep, it's already in use by another container. So we don't use Docker run to restart a container, we use Docker start. So Docker start, PostgreSDB was the name we gave it. Okay, it's running. It's not showing us the logs, but that's okay. We'll go back here. We'll log back into the Docker container, so that's good. It's running again. We'll log back into the Postgres database, and we'll once again say select star from my table. And there we go. It remembered our data even though we restarted Docker. See you next time, where we're going to learn how to start and run a database in the cloud.